going on, everybody? Welcome back to Fourth and Wrong. It is week 10. Ugh.
Yeah. Don't love that.
Don't love it at all, but a good week nonetheless. Chris, I predict that a top 5 team will lose this week.
Aren't Penn State and Ohio State playing?
Yeah, that was a joke, I guess. That was tough.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Dude, I was looking at Action Network today. They do a weekly thing where it's like a betting trends or whatever. I didn't realize how bad the numbers were for Ohio State playing like top 5 and top 10 teams.
What about Penn State?
I was gonna say not as bad, but I could be making that up. Let's get into it because there's a lot of good games. And we have graphics this week. We've done research. Huh? How about this?
You got a pad? Ooh.
Got a pad.
Okay. Where would you like to start? I'll let you direct this.
Well, so let's start with I didn't upload the actual graphics yet. So why don't we just ease our way into it? We're going to revisit a segment we did one time. I have a hate watch of the week.
Okay.
Let's see. By the way, tomorrow, Halloween. What are the kids going to be this year?
Stanton just hit another home run. 5-0. My son is going to be a dinosaur and a T-Rex. And my daughter is a fairy.
Okay.
So, not exactly the most creative nor the most original, but
I mean, they're
a good time nonetheless.
What's the most creative Halloween costume you ever did?
I never got real creative with Halloween. It was usually a pretty standard setup. Yeah. What about you?
We did the cast of 2-A-Days in college. That was a good one. I did Forrest Gump in college. I did that one pretty well.
How'd you do that?
I mean, like, I had a shaved head at the time. Well, I had a similar haircut. My buddy had like those old school Nikes. They were size like 14. It was like bowling clown shoes. I just remember we were at Capital City in Milledgeville, and I was so drunk that I dropped an entire, I think it was like multiple boxes of chocolate on the dance floor and was kindly asked to leave.
And you were so drunk that you talked like Forrest Gump does in the movie, but you were actually trying to talk in your own real voice.
Yeah, that was also definitely happening. I think
the chocolates. You
never know. The internet.
Yeah.
I remember one time when I was like 7, I dressed up as David Palmer, who played at Alabama.
Okay.
And I was like at media days in like 2017, and I was going down the escalator and he was going up, and I just blurted that out because I saw him, and I was like, I dressed up as you for Halloween. And there was this very real concerned look on his face because he was not white, and probably not my best Halloween costume.
I see where you're going with that.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't do a face.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, games this week should be real good.
Yes, sir. Speaking of that, Ole Miss and Arkansas. I think it's going to be a great game.
Do you really?
12 p.m.
Okay.
In Fayetteville. Arkansas, home dog of a touchdown. Total 53.5. When's the last time that Ole Miss looked like super impressive to you?
In general, probably when they were playing shit teams.
Yeah. I don't think Arkansas is a shit team. Now, LSU, I thought they were going to come to play in that spot, but maybe that wasn't the spot. Maybe this is the spot that the Razorbacks show up.
That could be. Yeah, they looked bad, and that, and they were off a bye.
Yeah, it didn't make much sense.
No.
But yeah, Arkansas getting 7 points, 53.5. What are your thoughts on this game? Sounds like you think Ole Miss goes big.
Here's the thing, Tyler. Here's something that shocked me because Kiffin has been good on the road, especially against the spread as a head coach. There's Action Network, guys. There is, what is that? Where's the stats? For one, Underdogs in the SEC this year are 26-11, the best of any conference. Home favorites are 3-15 against the spread in conference games. That is the worst conference mark for home favorites in the SEC since 1990, which is kind of crazy. Where is Kiffin? Okay. So going into this game, I thought I saw that it opened at 4. Apparently it opened at 7. It stayed right there. Kiffin as a road favorite, 28-8 straight up, 19-16-1 against the spread. Since 2019, he's 14-2 straight up, 11-4-1 as a favorite on the road. He hasn't lost consecutive road games in the same season since 2018 when he was at FAU. But here's the thing. How about the fact that Ole Miss, who I wouldn't say I thought they dominated this series, but this game's in Fayetteville. They are 1-8 in their last 9 trips to Fayetteville. 1-8.
Straight up?
No. Yeah. Straight up. And on top of that, they are losing those games by an average of 20.3 points per game. Only one was by less than double digits. They had the 2016 game, the what do you call it, Hunter Henry or whatever, like the heave on 4th and 25. Every other game has been by at least double digits, including 3 of the last 4 when Ole Miss was ranked in the top 15. Their only win there was in 2008 by 2 points. So I don't know what happens then when they get to Fayetteville. And it's not like Arkansas is a bad team. Taylor Green's coming off his best game of the year with like 6 touchdowns, almost 400 yards of offense. Part of me wants to take the over in this because you think that like the two offenses will be like really, really good with Petrino and Kiffin. But both defenses have been really, really good all season long as well.
Yeah, so I think I like the under in this game. Total is 53.5. So every Ole Miss game since Furman, the opening game that they won 76-0, has gone under.
Really?
Yep.
That's a good stat.
So interesting. Even, blowout wins against Middle Tennessee, 52-3. That's an under. 40-6 against Wake Forest, 52-13 against Georgia Southern. All those totals were in the mid to upper 60s. The closest total they've had to this, which is 53.5, was Kentucky. Actually, they had a 53.5 against South Carolina, and the final score is 27-3.
Yeah,
1.5, and the total was 17-20. So I like the under in this game, and because of that, I also like Arkansas to keep it close. I think that they can keep it within a touchdown. So if I was to be on a side here, I think I would be on Arkansas. You'd think this would be, I think if you look at the schedule at the beginning of the year and you see, wow, this game is sandwiched on the road between home games against Oklahoma, who at the time we thought was going to be pretty good, and Georgia, you'd think it'd be a perfect spot. It still is a good spot because they do have Georgia next week. And I mean, if you're Kiffin, it's like, okay, you didn't play a ranked team, and so you played LSU and you lost. And Georgia's going to only be the second ranked team that they play.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to show out in that game. I just think Arkansas is catching them at a good time. So I'll take the under and I'll take Arkansas to cover, but I don't know that I would like them to win.
Yeah, I don't know if I would bet on this one. I want to. I would it has all the makings of like a really fun game. And also like the last several times they played, it's either been like chaotic or super fun. Like there was like that 52-51 win a couple of years ago in Oxford, things like 2021. That 2020 year where like Matt Corral threw like 6 picks in one game. So it feels like there's like always some kind of craziness that happens in this one. I just don't know. Like, dude, if it was 3 weeks ago, I feel like I would have a much better understanding of who each team was. I would have been wrong, but like Arkansas off the bye week getting blanked at home by LSU, Ole Miss blowing that game at LSU. They still have everything in front of them that all their goals are still in front of them. They could still make the playoff if they beat Georgia and win out. But already, like I just would love to see Kiffin in a big game moment, like in like the week of a big game, to not be petty, childish, and be like a bitch in his press conferences and complain about like, dude, him starting Monday off by complaining that they didn't get a night game in a game that's not even happening until next week maybe I'm overreacting. It just feels like it's yet another example of him not being focused on like what's actually in front of you. And by the way, all you had to do was not lose to Kentucky, and then you probably would have had the night game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't lose to Kentucky at home and only score 17 points. So yeah, I like Arkansas there. Weird line, first weird line of the day. We don't even have to cover it. Minnesota at Illinois. Illinois +3
At home?
at home.
Ugh.
Don't get that. Stay far, far away.
Yeah.
The other one I didn't get, 12:45 slot, SEC Network, Vandy at Auburn. Auburn, a 7-point favorite.
Feels like they're begging you to take it.
Begging.
Vandy is
like
5-0 against the spread as an underdog this season, with like multiple, I think at least 3 wins outright.
How are they even an underdog?
Dude,
They're a better team.
Maybe. I mean, like Auburn looked good last week because they finally gave Jarquez Hunter the ball. And Vandy, dude, you know what's crazy is that Vandy, 1, they held Texas 27 points. 2, they came back and made that game close late in the fourth and lost by 3. They had 3 turnovers. They went into that game having 2 turnovers the entire season, and they had 3 in that one game against Texas. Like, you could make the case that if that doesn't happen, maybe they don't lose that game.
You know who
on the road?
A ton?
Was that?
You know who turns the ball over a ton?
Yes, I do.
It's Auburn.
Yeah.
125th nationally in turnover margin.
That's real bad. That's real bad.
Not good. So I just don't get it. I will stay away from this one as well because I seriously, when I looked at it, I was like, okay, this is coming from the same kid, a couple kids on this team, and a couple coaches that beat Auburn last year on a much less talented team.
I didn't realize that Pavia has beaten him twice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, like Vandy is a good team. Like, and you know, I think like if I was going to bet on this, my gut tells me to go with Auburn just because of not because they're turning a corner or anything, but like 1, they haven't lost 3 consecutive home games since 2012. This would be the 3rd one. They also haven't played a home game since September 28th.
Streaks are meant to be broken.
And that's all Vandy's done this year. That's
right.
it. I mean, like, I feel like this is also a great, like, I think Pavia thrives in like situations like this. 1, it's already a familiar setting where he had a huge win a year ago. And then 2, like, I think that them clinching a bowl berth with a win over Auburn on the road would be huge. Like you said, they are a good team. If I was going to bet it, Auburn's really bad in the first quarter of games. Like, for whatever reason, they're really bad. Vanderbilt scored first against Vandy. I'm sorry, Vandy scored first against Bama, Texas, and Kentucky, and Vatek. So them to score first, or at least keep it close in the first quarter, I would like that a lot.
Okay. But ultimately, you see Auburn covering this 7-point spread.
It just feels way too fishy of a line.
It does. It really does. You want to go to the 3:30 slate here? Actually, no. Sorry. Left off quite a big game at noon on Fox.
Did I put it in there? Oh, damn it.
Number 4, Ohio State, 6-1. At number 3, Penn State, 7-0. This game is on Fox at noon. Total 45. Spread Ohio State by 3.5 on the road.
That feels weird.
This is like the unstoppable force versus the, what is that quote?
Immovable object?
Yes.
This is like the stoppable force in the postseason meets a movable object also in the postseason.
Always against Ohio State.
Always.
I can see why Ohio State's favored in this game. Penn State has not had a ton of luck against Ohio State. But Ohio State, or Penn State continues to prove me wrong. I every week I feel like I've said, look, Aller's gotten better for sure. Your offense is definitely more explosive than it was last year, but I just wasn't a big believer in them yet. This is their chance to prove it. The hook scares me. if you're trying to take Ohio State. But I think Ohio State's a much better team. I don't know. What do you think about the spot? What do you think about the game?
Do you think they're a much better team because of the roster or because of what you've seen on the field this year?
I would say the
roster. Don't fucking lie to me, Tyler.
All right, fine. It is the roster.
I mean, they should be the best team in the country, and I'm not even holding the loss to Oregon over their head. Even last week, they looked odd and off, and not like. I mean, there was multiple times last week against Nebraska with a true freshman quarterback where they could have put them away, and they didn't. And honestly, if Nebraska didn't get stopped on the goal line, and where they probably could have kicked a field goal as well, that game probably ends up a little bit differently. And it was at home.
Yep.
The other thing is, like, has Penn State played anybody?
So Penn State has played one ranked team thus far. It was Illinois at home. They were 19.5-point favorites, and they won 21-7.
That is, I'm looking at the FPI schedule.
Now, they did play that overtime thriller against USC on the road. That was considered a big win. I don't know that I love USC, though. So the fact that your defense is supposed to be pretty elite, give up 30 points, even though it was in overtime, that's still, I don't think USC's offense is that great, like, especially compared to Ohio State. So I just don't know that Penn State can keep up offensively with Ohio State. Ohio State's got a much better offense. I think their defenses are pretty comparable. I mean, Penn State's not great at getting to the quarterback, which I think you're going to need to do stuff like that. A lot of havoc plays in this game. A lot of bad balls. We need strips. We need picks. We need fumbles.
I mean, that's usually the havoc plays. I feel like the ones that have made the biggest difference in this exact game several times over the last, 5 to 8 years. Like, you think about the 2022 game. Like, it was close in the fourth quarter. I think Ohio State came from behind, and the edge rusher, I cannot pronounce his name. The Hawaiian kid, the Samoan kid. Oh, yeah. He got like a strip sack and ran in for a touchdown, so they pull away late. But I mean, a lot of times we talk about how James Franklin always gets in his own way. Like that 4th and 5 where he called like a QB zone read with Tate McSorley in 2016 or 2017, whatever it was. Penn State, it feels like they get the benefit of the doubt every year. Like they are, the ceiling is the floor. It's 10 and 11 wins every year, and that's really, really impressive. But their current strength of schedule is 64th. 64th in the country, which is tough to do. Ohio State's is 39, so it's not much better. But I don't think Penn State's played anybody. Here's the most interesting part of this, though, again, from what I referenced earlier in the show. From Action Network, Penn State hasn't defeated Ohio State outright since 2016. 7 straight wins for Ohio State, dating back to 2012. Ohio State's 11-1 straight up, including 18-4 against Penn State since 2002. 18-4. I did not realize that part. As a home underdog, Penn State has lost 6 consecutive games straight up, with their last win coming back in 2016 against Ohio State. Ohio State faces a top 10 team this week in Penn State. Since 2018, the Buckeyes haven't been fantastic against the number in these big matchups. They're 6-14-1 against the spread, covering just 2 of their last 10 when they are facing a top 10 team. The 6-14-1 record against the spread is the second worst in that span in all of college football, behind only Michigan State, who is 3-13. In top 5 matchups, again, we talk all the shit we want about James Franklin. In top 5 matchups, Ohio State has lost 4 in a row straight up and 5 of its last 6 overall. Since 2016, Ohio State is 3-8 straight up and 2-9 against the spread against top 5 teams. When ranked in the top 5, Penn State will play their 3rd game of the year with a spread under 7. And that one doesn't really matter. But I mean, dude, I didn't realize Ohio State was that bad in non-SEC and non-postseason games, for one. Them being a road favorite seems a little bit sketchy. I just don't think Penn State's played anybody. I don't know if I would bet on it. The total being at 46 is, I feel like that's a little bit low.
I do too. I do like the over in this game. I'd be interested to see. I haven't seen the history and the matchup. Only 2 games Penn State has played in this year have gone over. The game against USC, obviously, that was in overtime, and then weirdly enough against Bowling Green,
That's
34-27.
Jesus Christ.
So yeah, it's tough. I mean, Kent State, they've played Bowling Green, West Virginia, UCLA, one of the worst Power 4 teams, I would say. I mean, I thought Wisconsin, that was a good win last week, though. Going on the road at night, Camp Randall, you were a 6.5-point favorite on the road in that scenario, and you cover the spread 28-13. Wisconsin's not ranked, but that's still a tough game. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how Penn State plays in this game. But until I actually sit there and watch Penn State beat Ohio State, which it feels like it's been forever, I'm taking Ohio State straight up. Because it's three and a hook, I'll take Penn State with the hook. If it got below that, I'd probably take Ohio State.
I love the fact that Penn State went on the road, like you said, against Wisconsin and lost several players due to injury, like several. Aller was hurt. I think they had like another offensive lineman or 2 offensive linemen that they.
Aller's not playing this game, right?
I think he's probably playing. I didn't hear that.
He would play, but I think it is questionable at least.
Okay. Well, I mean, if he doesn't play, then I obviously like Ohio State and their chances in that one. Here's a good question for you. If they lose, is Ohio State out of the playoff? Because right now, like I kept saying this before the season started, we all these SEC fans kept assuming like, well, yeah, they're going to get at least 4 or 5 in. And we have never been in a situation with a 12-team playoff, so we didn't know how it was going to play out. You add these 2 teams, well, and mainly Texas, to further cannibalize the SEC. By the way, the ACC has 2 really good teams with Miami and Clemson. The Big 12 is creating all sorts of nightmarish chaos for you because BYU is undefeated, and so is Iowa State right now. So you could easily make the case that only 3 SEC teams get in. I'm not a huge believer in A&M, but like as of today, Oregon's in, Penn State is probably in. Then you have Indiana, who like Indiana only has one losable game left in that schedule. And if they go 11-1 with the way they've looked, they deserve to be in. So if Ohio State loses, they could theoretically be out of the playoff.
I don't know, man, because then let's say those are their only losses. That means that at some point you would have played Indiana, which is their second to last game before Michigan, which they shouldn't get credit for a Michigan win this year. No. Because Michigan is terrible on offense. But you still have to play Indiana at home, and your only 2 losses, presuming Penn State wins out, would be against the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country. I mean, I think that's a resume worthy of being a top 12 team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. It's tough. If you lose 2 games by 4 points, both on the road on the last play of the game, it is a tough pill to swallow. But, I mean, and I'm not saying this
imagine losing none and still not making the playoff.
Okay, that's fair, yeah, for sure.
and then coming back and only winning 1 game.
It's so bad. Lay down. So bad.
Yeah, it's bad. No, it's horrible. I mean, the Tallahassee local talk radio has been some of the most depressing shit I've ever heard in my life. And I still listen to it every day because I'm a just masochist, I guess.
You listen to Tallahassee Sports Talk Radio?
Every single day since probably 2010.
Jesus.
Because they put it out on podcast form. I don't listen to it live.
All right, I'm taking Penn State.
Straight up?
Yeah.
Okay, well. All right, yeah, I'll take Ohio State.
By the way, in the last 22 years is insane.
What is it?
18-4 against Penn State. Like that, I had no idea it was like that.
That's domination. All right, 3:30 slate. There are 2 matchups that are big names. I don't necessarily think that they're going to be close games. We'll see. The first one on CBS, number 1 Oregon, obviously undefeated at Michigan, 5-3. Michigan at home, a 15-point underdog currently. Total 45.5. So
yeah, like Lanning is really, really good, really, really good on the road. It's a small sample size because he hasn't been a head coach for that long. I didn't realize how impressive it was. Here you go. As a road favorite, Lanning is undefeated straight up in his career, 11-0 straight up and 9-2 against the spread. They're winning those games by 26 points per game and covering by at least 8 points per game in all of them. No coach has more straight up wins as a road favorite than Lanning and Oregon since 2022. I had no idea that was that impressive. As a double-digit favorite, they are 7-1 in those games on the road. Here's the thing, man. Like, I love that mainly because I was already going to bet on Oregon anyway. Like, 15 doesn't seem like it's enough. I would also take Oregon early in the first half. You can get them to cover 7 in the first half. Michigan just isn't a good offensive football team. Oregon's good on both sides of the ball. And it also feels like one thing Lanning does seem to have, he might still struggle with some in-game coaching decisions, but he does get his guys up no matter what the situation is. You don't see them like falling flat a lot. I love Dylan Gabriel. He's been awesome this year. So I don't see it really slowing down. Like Michigan is exactly what we said they were going to be in the offseason. You don't lose that much talent to the NFL. You don't lose half of your coaching staff, including the head coach. You don't lose a generational first round top 10 pick at quarterback and replace him with a first year coach and that schedule. And I fucking love it. It's hilarious to watch.
Yeah, I saw I think it was their quarterback that started last week or the week before has now retired from football, Jack Tuttle. So I think he's not going so hot. I did see that they're trying to get into the what's that guy's name? Bryce Underwood sweepstakes. Now, interesting tie here. I was listening to the Barstool Pick'em podcast with Portnoy, Big Cat, and Rico.
Mm-hmm.
And Portnoy was talking about how he's like Michigan is just terrible. We need a quarterback. And he's like, I've been talking. I'm going to get involved in the NIL. I'm going to basically buy a quarterback.
Yeah.
And now
every year,
quarterback in the country is interested in Michigan.
The number that I was told was like $3 million. And because Underwood's committed to LSU and has been for about a year.
Yeah.
So it's been a pretty big topic of conversation with ESPN, Baton Rouge, and all that kind of stuff. When we get off of this show, I have to go edit a video that Moscona did today because he doesn't think that he's going to necessarily leave. But like, here's the thing, man. If there's anybody that is absolutely not going to hesitate to spend that money, it's Portnoy, just to prove a point. Mm-hmm. And it's smart. Like, it's smart. Like, that kid is in your backyard. I think if you offer him $3 million, that's not even that crazy of a number for like what we've already seen. Like, Nico got 8, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, think about what Florida promised. I think it's a good move. And listen, it's not like Underwood is like a 5-star or an Elite 11 guy. Like, he's the number 1 player in the country. So and they need all the help they can get, man. Like, I think you should definitely entertain it. I think it would be pretty fascinating to watch if it does happen. I don't even think it's like necessarily a bad thing if it happens. This game, give me Oregon in every single possible fucking way. Like, cover 7 in the first half. If you want to buy it down to 14, I think they cover that too. Michigan just isn't a good offensive football team.
Correct. This, by the way, is a perfect spot for Oregon. You know, they're coming off of a game against Illinois where it's a ranked matchup and didn't have to put much into it. They won 38-9. Next week they have Maryland at home. So it's not going to catch you off guard. It's still a name brand. They won the championship. They are the reigning champions. So it's not a soft spot in the schedule. Meanwhile, Michigan, look how they're ending the year. They've got this game. Next week they go on the road to Indiana. And of course they still have to go on the road to Ohio State at the end of the year. So they're playing 2 top 5 teams and a top basically 10 team.
Yeah. What's their record right now?
So they have lost 3 games. They've lost to Illinois, they lost to Washington, and they lost to Texas.
Not that bad.
They did beat USC, and they've beaten Fresno State, Arkansas State, Minnesota, and Michigan State.
Ugh, God.
Yikes.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll
Other
get next.
3:30 game.
I don't know the times.
Take it down to Jacksonville, baby. Next year we'll take it to Atlanta, and the year after that we'll take it to Tampa.
I don't know how I feel about that. I thought it would have been cool to have that game on campus.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, it's never been played in Atlanta, which is kind of crazy. It's been played in Tampa before, but it was like in 1919. It just feels odd. Like them playing
the 1919 Tampa game. In that 19 game, that 19 Georgia squad.
Yeah, well, the rest of the world was at war, which is when they won one of their other national titles in 1942 and a Heisman that they claim very, very proudly.
I'll never forget the old Peach State prowler, Pee Wee Williams.
Charlie Trippy.
Yeah, up there at Georgia. Really just went off in that 19 Tampa game.
Dude, there's like several players from Georgia, like way back in the day, just like there are everywhere, that are like legitimate NFL Hall of Famers, like Fran Tarkenton, all these other people. But like, you're just not going to convince me that someone named Charlie Trippy was, especially in 1942, like that is a league of their own situation that he was in college football. Everyone else was gone fighting the war. Anyway, dude, let's get into this game because there's not a game that cracks me up more as a impartial fan than this one, because Georgia and Florida, we have watched this game our entire life. Usually it's like an off week for Bama, especially for the LSU game. I grew up watching Spurrier and those Florida teams. They won 21 of 30. 21 of 30. And their fans hate each other more than any other fan bases I see on social media, which is saying something. I've never seen a head coach hate a team more than Kirby Smart hates Florida. And it shows with the way that he plays against them every single year. If you're betting on this game, Tyler, because like the fact that the number is down to 16.5, I hope Napier coaches his ass off and does a great job and retains his job. Really, at this point, just to spite Florida fans. But how dominant it feels like this rivalry has been. You take away that 2020 game with the wheel routes. Let me read you some numbers, okay? Here's how I would bet this game. Georgia to score first. Georgia to cover 9.5 in the first half. Florida to score under 8.5 total in the first half. Florida to not score in the first quarter. Florida to not score over 14.5 in the game. Georgia to cover the 16.5. I would take all of them. I would take every single one of them. Here are the actual numbers from this rivalry since 2017. Georgia has won 6 of the last 7. In those 6 wins, the margin of victory is plus 133. So they're winning those games by 22.6 points per game, right? How about the fact that in those 6 games, Florida has only scored 1 time in the first quarter. Once. They were held to 0 points in 5 of the other 6. The one time they scored was last year's first drive where Mertz scored whatever it was, like they went up 7-0. In the first quarter alone, they're getting outscored 82-7 in those games. 82-7. In the first half, they are getting outscored 125-20. They have not scored over 20 points in this game in any of those 6 games. They have not scored more than 7 points and a half against Georgia in any of those 6 games, and they were held scoreless in 5 of the 6 games. Usually Georgia's a second half team. Kirby beats the brakes off of them from start to finish every single year. So if you are looking for the best bet and like the easiest money that's on the board this entire weekend, Georgia to cover 9.5 in the first half, Georgia to score first, Florida to be under 8.5 in the first half and be under a half point in the first quarter as well. Like, it is the lock of the year.
So you're not getting good vibes for Florida in this game, because my vibe is that Florida may actually play well, because I feel like Florida's kind of rounding into form a bit.
Why?
I will say this: Florida. So under DJ Lagway in the Power 5, there's nobody that has a higher yards per attempt.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody that has a higher big time throw percentage. So if you can somehow hit big plays on Georgia, which he's had a propensity to do, then I think you could stay in this game because I'm not that impressed with Georgia's offense. I mean, this isn't like, and to be honest, like, I mean, their defense has shown out in games, but there have been games that they also haven't. Now, to your point, Kirby's usually ready for this one. So
Right.
you would think, but yeah, I don't know. Like my gut says take Florida on the points, but I just don't really feel like betting against Georgia after I did against Texas.
Dude, I hope that Napier has him ready to play and all that kind of stuff. But here are the actual facts that he has to work with. A true freshman quarterback going up against Kirby Smart. And here's the thing.
Scare me.
Like, I'm not saying throw out everything we've seen from Georgia in the first 2 months of the season, but every single year, it seems like, especially from 2021 on, you watch Georgia kind of play with their food at times, and like they're holding in season practices basically for the first 2 months against all these different teams, right? And just working on different things and figuring it all out. And they get to that bye week at the end of October and come out for this game, and it seems like every single year they just steamroll everybody. And like nobody does a better job of seeing the big picture of like the entire season and like when your team needs to start peaking, all that kind of stuff. And here's the other thing too. Every single week now, over like the last 2 or 3 weeks, including this one, Georgia is getting more and more players back, especially defensively. So I agree with you. Like Carson Beck has not been great offensively, and he's looked like pretty bad at times. But dude, it's like it's not even a dig at Florida. It's just the fact that every single year they come out. They had a great first drive of that game last year. They had a great first drive, Tyler. It's the only time they've scored a point in the first quarter in 6 of the last 7 years. I mean, that's insane.
It feels a little nasty.
Yeah. They haven't scored more than 7 points and a half against Georgia in 6 of the last 7 years. Lock of the year, man.
If you're Georgia, obviously, don't come out of the bye like you did last time against Alabama, because you could have a problem on your hands. I mean, I think Florida's better than we all expected. Can we give them that at least?
Kirby's 15-1 off a bye in his last 16 games. The one loss was against Bama.
It's always Bama. It was always Bama.
It was always Bama.
Any other games catch your eye this weekend? I mean, Louisville, Clemson is kind of a big one. Clemson at home, -10.5, total 63, night game. I could see this one definitely being high scoring. Louisville has offense. Clemson's offense is finally clicking after it seems like 3 or 4 years of struggling. Klubnik's finally found it under the other Riley brother, Garrett Riley from TCU, the OC there. Louisville put up a ton of points against Miami, just couldn't keep up defensively, and I can kind of see the same thing happening here. I'm not that impressed with Clemson's defense this year.
Fair.
So the total's high. It's 63, but I think I do like it. Night game. It'll be a rowdy atmosphere. I think I'll take Clemson because I think Clemson's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I agree.
Their offense is a lot better than it has been in the last few years, but their defense probably isn't as good as I've seen it in a few years either. So it's kind of hard to get
disciplined either. It's weird.
Yeah.
So
Garrett Cole, are you watching this World Series game?
Kind of. What happened?
So Aaron Judge dropped a routine fly ball.
Yes.
And they had an error at third. So Garrett Cole, 2 outs. I'm sorry, no outs, bases loaded, just struck out Ohtani and the guy before him. And now he's got Betts, potentially giving up no runs.
Nice. I hate the Yankees. All right. I don't really give a shit about this game. I looked at like Clemson's been so good in the first half and the first quarter of games this year, but I don't trust them enough to bet on it. I will say this: if you were going to like wager a large amount of money, right? Like just like a lot to not necessarily win a lot, but a lot. Like if you're going to wager a lot, this is the one to do it on. Clemson's off a bye. All time under Dabo Swinney, they're 15-0 off a bye week. They're also 8-0 against Louisville with like 6-2 against the spread. But the line is like, I want to say it's like 11 in the first half, which feels very high, like very high. So I don't know if I would bet it, but like Clemson, especially at home, has been really, really good in the first half of games. Maybe their team total over 20.5 or over 19.5 in the first half is a good bet because Louisville doesn't play a ton of defense. But that's about all I would do. All right, we got two more real quick. This is another one.
There's no like late night games this weekend.
Yeah, there are. There's one.
What? I'm not seeing it. The last games that I see are at 8.
Oh, you mean like late?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not for me.
There's been some great T-Hook After Dark games, but
okay.
Tennessee, Kentucky.
Dude, Kentucky sucks. I only put this one in here because of like the betting standpoint. I'm going to reluctantly once again hitch my wagon to Josh Heupel and Tennessee in the first half. They have not been great the last 3 weeks, and when I say not great, they have not scored a single point in the first half of a game for 3 straight weeks. They have been the best first half offense in the country, like under Josh Heupel and like against the spread, offensively, whatever. In 6 years of him being a head coach, he has been the best first half coach for covering and also putting up points in the first half of games out of anyone in the country. Not so much lately. I do love the dark mode activated uniforms. They got the all black alternate unis. Here's the thing, man. Kentucky's not good. Kentucky's a really bad football team. So I'm not super high on Tennessee in the first half of the game necessarily because of it biting me in the ass the last 3 weeks in a row. But here's the thing. Kentucky is so bad, especially in the first half of games, and they're on the road. So I don't know if they're making a switch yet at quarterback with Vanderbilt or not. I don't think it's going to matter. Tennessee is off a bye. And Tennessee also is in a situation where they have like the third best odds right now to get into the college football playoff out of any other team in the SEC. So everything is still in front of them. I just keep waiting for Nico to put it together. And if he does, it is going to be a long, long day. It feels like it always is in this game for Kentucky. You know what I mean? Like Corey Nelson, you're obviously a Tennessee fan. Like, what's the actual number over the last like 34, 35 years? I want to say it's something like 33-2. So I just don't believe in Kentucky at all at this point. You can get them under 14.5 team total, and you can get them under 7.5 in the first half. Take it. They're not going to score. They're just not. So I would take that as well. Let's see here. Last one, and then we will get into best bets.
Go for it.
All right. So Carolina is hosting A&M. They're coming off a bye. A&M, of course, coming off a huge win against LSU. I am reluctant to believe in South Carolina in this one for 2 reasons. One, Carolina is at their best. They're like Auburn. They're at their best when no one is believing in them, right? Like when they're just kind of like lying in the weeds. And I said before the season on Locked On Gamecocks, I said, listen, you get 4 games at home. You get Mizzou, A&M, Ole Miss, and LSU. You're going to win one of those, just guaranteed. I don't think Mizzou's that great. You also get them a week after they play Oklahoma, which is a big one for them. They probably should have beat LSU, but they had some stuff with the refs and Sellers got hurt. A&M before this season was, I believe, let me make sure I'm right about this. I think they were 2-9 in road games in their last 11 games away from Kyle Field. I would feel so much better about this if the line wasn't steady dropping and people weren't rushing to pick South Carolina as like a trendy upset pick this weekend. The other thing is they're off a bye, but we've already seen it once this season where they were off a bye before Ole Miss, and they came out and they lost 27-3. They were in a fake punt like on their own 30, Then they fumbled a snap with a backup quarterback in for God knows what reason. Oh shit!
Dude, are you seeing this game?
This is awesome. I hate the Yankees.
Jeez.
So that is a like I can't completely trust in Beamer yet because they've been great on the road, but we've already seen the situation come off a bye in a big game. It is at night, which I do like that a lot. Here's the thing about A&M, man. I'm just gonna say it, and I'm gonna sound like a dickhead saying it, but I think it's actually true. Yeah, they were 2-9. A&M was 2-9 in their last in the last 2 years in road or neutral site games. This year, their road games they've played at Florida, who had no idea what they're doing at quarterback. They had a neutral site game against Arkansas. They won by 4, and then they played at Mississippi State, who's 1-7 and won by 10. They haven't even committed to saying that Wegman's not going to be the guy still after what Marcel Reed just did. Here's my take on A&M. I think they're really good defensively, and I think they're a solid football team. But I think they beat a really bad Mizzou team on national television with everybody watching and beat them beat the brakes off them. Everyone was like, oh, man, maybe A&M's good. Then they slipped by. Dude, they also played Bowling Green and won by 6. They slipped by Arkansas by 4. And then they came into what do you call that game last week? They were losing for a majority of the first 2.5 quarters, and then Garrett Nussmeier threw 2 interceptions in the third, and then another. And they were all in their own territory. Like, you gave them the ball up 10, you gave them the ball on your own 8-yard line, and allowed them to score over and over and over again. They're a good team, but here's the deal, man. Like, they are kind of one-dimensional offensively. I think Marcel Reed is good, but they run the ball 63.7% of their plays. They don't throw the ball well downfield. They're good on defense up front and on the back end, and that's what worries about South Carolina because their offensive line is not great. It's one of the worst in the country. So if you get Sellers into a situation where he played like he did earlier in the year, where he's strip sacks, bad fumbles, like not seeing like blitzes or getting blindsides or whatever, then South Carolina will lose the game. But if they don't, I don't think that A&M's that good, man. I don't think they're that good. I'm still not bought in. Like, it was a great win against LSU. Dude, LSU handed you that game. And LSU also is the worst rushing offense in the entire SEC and one of the worst in the country. They had 12 rushes for 0 yards in the second half. They had 3 more turnovers than they had rushing yards in the second half of that game.
Look, you can get to Texas A&M through the air. I don't know if Lenora Sellers is good enough to take advantage of it, but certainly that's where you beat Texas A&M. I mean, it's going to be a hostile environment, dude, in Columbia at night. They do get a bye after this, speaking of A&M, and then they got New Mexico State at home, a bad Auburn team, let's face it, on the road. And then what a matchup at the end of the year. Like, if they can get past this game, potentially you've got 0 SEC losses, and you're going to play Texas A&M at home, SEC conference game in state like that, dude. Bitter rivals. That would be an epic game.
Dude, have you seen the tickets? The ticket prices?
No.
Oh my god, it's like upper deck is like $1,500, $1,600 a piece. That's the cheapest. That's like the get in price.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man, that's what I think. Real quick, you got any best bets?
It's just very, very unfortunate that I love those 2 sucker lines. Vandy +7 and Illinois +3. Why? I just hate that I love those.
I don't like it at all.
Oh, here's one for you. UNC plus -2.5 at Florida State.
Yeah, I don't
Norvell's press conference this week, he essentially alluded to the fact that, like, when's the last time that you heard a coach mid-season like, yeah, we are actively planning for the off season?
I don't think I've ever heard that.
He's actively? Like, yeah, he's like, we've been focused on he goes, it's a critical off season. We've got a plan to execute. We've been working on various things as far as roster management, staff management for the last few weeks. Like, it's been a complete shit show, dude.
What happened to like all the Bama guys you guys got?
Well, Roydell's out for the year with an injury after like the second game. Benson. I mean, look, the O-line. So Terrence Ferguson has been an absolute disaster. That guy's terrible.
Yeah, he's not good.
And pretty much everyone on our O-line has been terrible this year. So it's hard to really know if Benson would be good if there was like a decent situation, but he had no QB. Can't go, like, he's a deep route runner. We don't have enough time to throw the ball deep.
Yeah,
so,
that's fair.
They just moved Earl Little to safety, and he's starting to play a lot better there.
That's good.
Did he refuse to play safety at Bama?
Yeah. What? We had Caleb Downs and Malachi Moore. Why would he have played safety?
Is that what I'm saying? Is that why he transferred? Because he didn't want to play safety?
I have no fucking idea. I just saw their stat line like last week on Twitter, and I was like, "What the fuck did y'all do?" All right, that's a tough one, and you guys are underdogs to that, which is insane to me.
Yeah, I would not take Florida State in the points in any game the rest of the year. I just think everybody in that they've lost almost their entire 2025 recruiting class because, in my opinion, I think these coaches have been told that they're not going to be coming back. And so
I can see that.
It's just, I think almost everybody in the building's checked out at this point. So yeah, I think that's a best bet every week.
Let's get into the hate watch of the week. And if you love horrible offense, this is the one for you. Dude, here's the thing though. Purdue's awful. Purdue's awful specifically in the first half. I said this a couple weeks ago because they were playing Illinois. And I said Illinois to cover 10. I stumbled across Purdue and their just misery at like 1 o'clock in the morning one night when I was doing my Big Picks energy. And I was like, oh my God, this is a treasure trove because they're horrible. Horrible. They had, I think it was like, I forgot the exact numbers, but like they hadn't scored over like 6 or 7 points in the first half of a game. Like, against anyone in the FBS or like at all, like not just Power 4, but like in the FBS. They then played Illinois, and I said first half Illinois to cover 10 was like the lock of the week. They won. They were up like 23-3 at the half. Purdue scored 49 points in that game. Only 3 of it came in the first half. They have not scored a single point in the first quarter of a game against FBS opponents at home this year. And that's where this game is. And Northwestern's not good, but they are better than Purdue because Purdue's the worst team in all of the Power 4. Like, and it's not even close. Take the under. Take Northwestern to score first because it's only like minus 120. Take them to win the first half because I think it's like a half point. The first half under is 23.5. These are two of the worst. These two teams combined, Tyler, for an average of like 9.7 first half points per game combined. They're awful. Like they're awful.
Man. Purdue, I'm just looking at their numbers. Purdue is 128th in the country. I'm sorry, 126th in the country in points per game on offense. And they're 132nd in the country on points per game on defense.
Yeah. They're awful.
One of the worst teams in the country on both sides of the ball. And they are.
How about
as bad as their offense is, they did put up 49 points against Illinois somehow.
Yes.
But they also scored 0 last week against Oregon, 6 against Wisconsin, 7 against Notre Dame. So not exactly a great offense, but their offense is bad, but their defense is literally bottom 130 in almost every significant category.
Let me read you something real quick. The Covers does the breakdown of one team's offense, one team's defense, and their national rank for all these different stats, right? You already brought up like okay, they rank 110th in yards, 111th and 120th in passing yards, 112th in completions. They rank 105th in sacks allowed. They're 100th or worse in like almost the 122nd in penalties. They're definitely not disciplined. Here's their scoring offense. Okay, Overall, it's 119. In the first quarter of games, it's 134. It's dead last. They're averaging 1 point per game in the first quarter of a game. 128th in the second quarter, 76th in the third quarter, and 34th in the fourth. That's strictly because of that one game, Tyler. Here's another stat for you. This is Northwestern's offense versus Purdue's defense. Northwestern's overall scoring offense is 123rd. Their first quarter is 126. Second quarter, 119. Third quarter, 112. Fourth quarter, 95. You brought up Purdue's defense. Northwestern is 95th or worse in every single quarter of scoring in football. Purdue's defense, 130, 124, 102, 101, 132. This is going to be awful. It's going to be awful. But I'm 1,000% taking the under and taking Northwestern to win outright because Purdue is garbage. Last but not least, here's your other locks of the week. We already talked about Tennessee, Kentucky. I like Marcel Reed to score an anytime touchdown. I do like that with his legs. I think like that's pretty good value right there. Oregon -7 first half. Tennessee, I already said. Florida under 8.5 total points. I just went over Northwestern. A very, very good value here. Nebraska at home is playing UCLA. Nebraska is not great, but they are at home, and UCLA is garbage. UCLA is really, really bad, even though they just beat, I think, Rutgers on the road last week. Nebraska, 6.5 point favorite. I'm taking that. I'm also taking them to score first because it's great value there. And I'm taking them -3 in the first half, and here's why. Nebraska in the first half, their points per game at home versus their points per game away. They averaged 22.3 points per game in the first half at home, 4.3 on the road. It's a +18 difference. Their defense, they allow 4.3 points total in the first half of games at home. They give up over 14 on the road. 10-point difference on defense, 18-point difference on offense. UCLA is garbage. It's possibly the best bet of the week. So there you go.
Love it. My dog is circling me like he's going to kill me if I don't let him outside. So I've got to run. But thanks for everybody for tuning in. Hopefully this week we'll get a recap show. I'm sorry.
We're going to get a recap show.
Okay.
All right,
everybody. Thanks. Take it easy.